Thank you, everyone. I am Liz Badalamenti. Welcome to the ASU ASRS, the pre-retirees information that we share with you every month. And we're welcoming today understanding some of the university plans for Fidelity and TIAA. We're splitting our time between CJ is going to start us off with he's a Fidelity workplace financial consultant. He can share more of his details about his bio if you'd like to. And then the second half will be Kevin Collins, who's the Director of Financial Consulting for TIAA. We'll take on from 12:30 to 1. CJ will answer questions as needed as we go along, and he will wait till the end should there's anything that you forget or want to ask after. So we're going to kick it off quickly, CJ, and get you going, and then Kevin will follow. So thank you both for being with us today and bringing your expertise.
Thank you so much for that, Liz. I truly appreciate the intro. And again, just really grateful to be here with everyone on this wonderful webinar. So just as Liz mentioned, CJ Olsen, I am a Fidelity Workplace Financial Consultant. As part of my role and responsibilities, I support ASU and as far as the other universities as well there in Arizona. I've been doing so for a couple of years now. I've had the chance to work with hundreds, if not thousands, of university employees and just helping them with their retirement. And realistically, in our role as workplace financial consultants, we are here to address individual needs in one-on-ones, as well as doing these kind of more educational webinars that we try to participate in and just make sure that we're getting as much information out there and helping people take really the next step or two in their journey. We recognize that planning for retirement really is a process, more like a marathon than a sprint. And so that emphasis on what is that next step? What else do we need to be doing is just so critical to the broader scheme of everything. And so that's really kind of the thoughts for our time here today, and making sure that we can do that. So I actually have about 15, 20 minutes of presentation material. I have some resources that I'm going to share with you all as well to help hopefully continue the conversation. So if you get a nugget or two from what I say, then hopefully we can take that even further through some of these resources. I'm going to provide those to Liz and her team so that there's going to be these links. So you don't need to worry about saving them or taking screenshots. I mean, you can do that of your of the content here, but know that that will be available for you at the end as well. And so just want to kind of put that out there, and we'll go ahead and share my screen now for my prepared slides here. So let me get those here in front of me. Okay. All right. So we're going to be focusing on the top things to do before you retire. Since this is, again, a pre-retiree webinar, we want to really focus in on those items that matter the most, really as you're preparing and thinking about retirement. Now, this can still apply to you if you are not very close to retirement. So I don't want you to be like, hey, if I'm still 20 years away, this isn't right for me. It still can be helpful for sure. But if you're within 5 to 10 years, this is really the topics we want people to be thinking about and how Fidelity can support you in that and just on that journey going forward. Okay, so this next slide, we say there's really 10 top things. Now, again, due to time, we're going to focus on 4 of those 10, as these are typically the biggest things that we hear from people in our one-on-one appointments. These are where questions tend to come up, where we tend to see flags in people's plans or where they need to make adjustments as they prepare. But again, this is not, this is not everything. Like I say, this is our first step, or definitely the first couple of steps in looking at the things that you need to do as you plan and prepare to retire. So getting your financial house in order, huge. Create a retirement income plan, so important, right? How are we going to pay the bills? Understand Social Security. That is one of the most complex things that have ever been passed in legislation history, right? And prepare for the unexpected. So that is still part of our lives, even though we're in retirement. No matter what, that doesn't go away. We all still need to prepare for that. And what does that mean? What does that look like? How does that look different in retirement than it typically does, say, before retirement, like right now? Okay. All right, so getting your financial house in order. So I really like this graphic because it's a house, right? It's a floor plan, it's a blueprint. of really your finances. That's what we're trying to create here. And for some of you, this might be already in place. I occasionally meet with someone who has a robust accounting of like, here's every debt I have and every income, and here's all my spending for the last 14 years, right? And they've figured all that out. And so if that's your case, great. This is one you get to just check and say, hey, I've already done this. For the vast majority of us, the rest of us, I should say, there's something here we need to do, right? There's something that we're not keeping track of or need else, right? So as you'll notice in that blueprint there, it's really starting to get organized with what, first off, what income do we have, right? What assets do we have? So you notice that savings accounts, 401ks from previous employers, traditional IRAs, taxable accounts, and so on and so forth. For those here with ASU, right, that's going to include things like your 403b if you have it here through Fidelity or TIAA, the 457b through Nationwide if you took advantage of that, right? That could also, of course, include things like the pension through ASRS if you're part of that program, right? So whatever benefits or specific retirement plans you're using through university, we need to know what it is, right? We need to keep track of that and make sure we know. And I'll tell a quick story here. I actually met with somebody just a few months ago. Great lady. She's a nurse at one of the local hospitals there at Banner Health that I also support. And she was like, CJ, I have these accounts and this employer changed hands 3 different times and this account moved. I can't find it. And we have spent literally the last 4 months tracking down some of these accounts. And lo and behold, she discovered she had $50,000 more for retirement than she realized, right? Because she just did, she's literally in the, hey, let's get my financial house in order and track down some of these things to make sure I can retire when I want to in the next, say, 3 to 5 years, right? Like this is, now I can't promise that you're going to find a $50,000 long lost account out there for yourself, but that is one of the potential benefits, right? Of just saying what's actually out there. Maybe it's just, having a little bit more over here or just knowing where it is so you know the extent of your totality of your income and assets that you have coming in. Now, of course, we need to be able to contrast that, right, to your various debts, right? Because we're going to have all these assets and these incomes in retirement, but then what goes against that ledger, right? So we have debt. Okay, well, if you have a mortgage, car payments, student loans, maybe even still that you're dealing with, or what have you, do we know what those are? Do we know the interest rates associated with them? If there's something like a mortgage, do we know when it's going to pay itself off? Is this something we're carrying into retirement or not? Right? So that's part of that side of the equation. We need to know all the assets and the positives, right? But then we also need to know what negatives on the debt side. And if you're someone who's really worked on that, maybe that's a big zero. And you're going to say, hey, CJ, I'm debt free. If that's the case, take a gold star. That's awesome. But also, if you're not, that's okay. Plenty of people go into retirement with some form of debt, often with, say, a mortgage or sometimes others, and that can still be okay. We just need to know what it is, right? Do we have a proper accounting? So if you come to meet with like myself or Kevin, right, at TIAA, who's going to be talking to you here in a few minutes, I know that he would love to know that. Say, hey, what are you doing? What is the extent of what's going on in your life? And then the next step is expenses on that. Now, this one is probably the hardest lift. Most of us can figure out what our 401k, 403b, pension balance is like that's attainable. But the expenses, the stuff that we do day in and day out, this is a little harder for most of us, right? And I'm not just talking a budget, right? Budgets are important. Yes, we need to plan on how we're going to spend our money going forward. But the first step in my mind with all of this is just, what are we doing? Do you have a process or a method to track your expenses? For the vast majority of people that I talk to in my one-on-one sessions, it's usually either like kind of or not at all, right? There are a few exceptions to that who people are really diligent on this side, but the vast majority are saying, hey, yeah, I kind of have a sense of what I'm doing, but I really don't know what I'm spending on groceries each month. I really don't know what I'm doing in utilities or eating out or my hobbies. Like, I don't have numbers for this. And so being able to figure that out is going to be so critical, not just now, but as you can imagine, developing a habit that we carry into retirement. When we're living on essentially a fixed income and creating our own paychecks, can we have confidence that we're going to have the amount of money we need? And the way that we can feel confident in that is tracking it today. What are we doing? And again, there's so many resources out there, whether it's spreadsheets, software, apps on your phone, you name it, right? That can help you do that. Some people still do it by hand, right? My grandfather was a third generation accountant and had a ledger, even though he was one of the first people in Las Vegas to have a personal computer, right? He still did it by hand. If that's your thing, awesome, do it. Just know what you're doing, okay? And what that looks like. So get our house in order. There's no replacement for this because everything else we do beyond this point depends on this factor. Okay? Now, creating a retirement income plan, again, this is going to be kind of a high level view for today, but really just highlighting where are we in the spectrum of retirement, right? If you're looking at like a typical mid-60s retirement, as many people do, then we want you thinking about this preferably 10 years in advance. So putting you in your 50s, right? So that's where we're like, are you getting your house in order, right? Write down your estimates. What do you think your expenses are going to be? What income are you going to have? Right? During your 50s, this is when people become what we call super savers, right? They tend to have the highest income they're going to be earning during their career, but they're also typically seeing some expenses drop off, whether that's kids leaving the house, whether that's paying off debt, right? Or just simply not needing to spend as much money, right? You've already furnished your house. You don't need to spend money on those things. And so it puts you in a position to save at a much higher rate. If you're in that position, take a really good look at what's possible. The university has so many options for saving. It is astounding. I have a lot of new hires who's like, hey, what do you mean I can also do the 403B and the 457B? Yes. And if you're in your 50s, you can put up to $30,500 each into each one of those accounts. That's $61,000. And that's above and beyond what you're either doing in the ASRS, if that's where you're at, or the ORP, which is the other mandatory. So that, again, above and beyond. That's huge. If you're in that super saver mode and you work here at ASU, you have a lot of opportunity to save for you and your family. So definitely take advantage of it. And if you've never met with us, great opportunity to set up an appointment to meet, to really do some of that, initial foundational building with this plan. And again, I'll show you where to sign up for those appointments if you're interested after our time as well. 60s, determine Social Security strategies. So yes, Social Security has strategies. Like anything in finance, there's not like, hey, everyone should do X, right? There are different approaches depending on your situation, and kind of longevity and just, what we see going on in the rest of your overall plan. Make sure you're considering your risk and asset allocation. I actually had this conversation just this morning, talking to someone who's 2 years away from retirement. And she's like, hey, people keep telling me I need to reallocate. I need to look at my allocation. I'm taking a fair amount of risk. I haven't made a lot of changes over the years. And we had to go through that. We talked about how that has done well for her up to this point. But the reality was she's going to start living on this money going forward, and taking that high level of risk could hurt her in the long run, right? So make sure you're looking at that. If you haven't done it by your 60s, you definitely want to do it by that point, if not before. Now, as we move into 65, things like Medicare, of course, come up, making sure that you're just looking at the overall retiree health options that you have through your employer. And then, minimum distributions, right? And required minimum distributions are something that really kicks in your 70s. But it's good to be educated on that. If you're not familiar with the rules and just what is going to be expected of you when you get there, that is a good topic, something to just wrap your head around how that impacts your broader retirement income plan. Because the government, if you have any tax deferred money, they're going to want you to start taking it out as early as 73, and then that age does go up to 75 here in the future. But right now it's 73. So if you're not planning on that, you're going to want to know, hey, how does that fit with my overall plan? Okay. So understanding Social Security, like I said, big topic. We're going to just touch on it. A couple highlights here. I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. Earliest everybody can take it is 62. That has not changed. That is still the case today. The latest you can take it is 70. So again, regardless of when you've been born, your maximum age, the government says, guess what? You have to take Social Security. It's one of the few times they're going to make you take money. You have to do it. Now, you may have a full retirement age between 66 and 67. This is where your date of birth comes into play. If you were born 1960 or after, it is age 67. For some of you who are before 1960, you could be like 66 in 2 months, 66 in 6 months, something like that, depending on your date of birth. But know how that impacts the longevity of your benefits here. The longer you wait, the more you get. As it mentions, 32% more. If my full retirement age is 67, I get 8% more a year, basically, going forward. That's big, right? Like that makes a difference for people. And if I take it early, and maybe I need to, mind you, but I take a reduction for the rest of my life. And so how long you live matters. If you're married, matters. So there's a lot there with Social Security that you're going to want to make sure you understand, and that you're maximizing it. If you're a widow or widower, there's another consideration there with Social Security. These are all great reasons to come talk to us and say, hey, am I doing the right thing? I'm thinking of taking it at 65. Does that make sense with everything else? Or 67, or whatever the age is. Or if you're just not sure and you want to talk through the pros and cons of each approach, we can definitely do that. And that's why I say if you're someone who's married, or you've a widow, for example, or you've been divorced, those, believe it or not, are reasons to do things differently, or at least they could be. And you might have different opportunities that aren't just for everyone else. And so definitely understand that. Make sure you have your, know what the numbers are. Make sure you're not missing out on anything that Social Security has to offer you going forward. All right, now prepare for the unexpected. I mentioned this at the beginning of my presentation. I wish I could say that unexpected things stop happening once we get to retirement. I think they tend to accelerate in some cases. But hopefully if we prepared well, then we've accounted for a lot of that. And if nothing else, we put ourselves in a position to deal with it. And this is where things like having a legacy plan, estate plan, right? These are the things that really help us guard against that unexpected reality. And just to share more of a personal note, my father a number of years ago, in 2018, had a stroke, ended up in the hospital, multiple surgeries. I mean, it was a long process. In that experience, he was 70 at the time. It became apparent that there were no power of attorney. My mother was in a position where she as a spouse was okay, but there were no healthcare proxies. There was nothing else that was medical directives. Like the doctors are asking questions, and my mother had to admit, like, I don't know, right? Like we've talked about some of this, but I don't know all these things. And it just hadn't crossed our minds. And it doesn't tend to cross our minds until we're in it. And so from a personal, I just implore people, please make sure that you are thinking about this in the broader scheme of your retirement plan, right? That yes, you might retire at 65 and maybe you live 30 years into retirement. That's possible. But at the end of the day, do we have medical directives? Do we have a will, trusts, life insurance, power attorney, especially, if like say if you're a single adult and your kids are going to be the ones making the decisions if something happens to you, are there things in place to direct them on what should happen? And then on the legacy side, right? It's easy to say, hey, this is where my retirement plan goes, right? You can add a beneficiary and that takes care of that account. But what about other things, right? Are there heirlooms? Are there valuables, mementos, photos, right? Other things that are important to you that you want to make sure continue forward in some capacity, and whether that's family members or a local charity or what have you, that you're doing that with, right? And so I know that's not something we all want to spend the weekend thinking about usually, but I can be honest, like there's value and peace of mind that can come when you go, hey, I've prepared for this not necessarily, I know it's going to happen one day, I will pass, but I'm prepared for whenever it happens, whether that's in 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, whatever the case may be. I've taken the time. And then most importantly, I evaluate it from time to time. I don't just set it and forget it, but I revisit, right? Things like trusts and life insurance and things, your needs can change and you're going to want to adjust according to those needs. So keep in mind, again, these are a lot of topics. Our hope here was to put something saying, okay, CJ mentioned X, and I'm not doing that yet, or I need to start doing that next year, or whatever it is that we need to do. And we recognize that, again, each person has a unique situation. I think that's why Kevin and I have a job, because the reality is there is so much variability built into your life and situation. And please talk to us. In the case of working with Fidelity, we have a couple of options. You can schedule with myself or my colleague, Ryan Barton. He's the other workplace financial consultant that covers ASU. You can also call our 800 number and set up a time right over the phone. Those can be on demand to talk to someone in my role and responsibility, but at the national level. So they don't have like scheduled appointments that they go in all day like myself and Ryan, but they are just available. So if you're just like, hey, I just want to talk to somebody about wills. I just want to talk to somebody about setting up a retirement income plan or getting organized or whatever it is on that we talked about here today, they're available for that. Now, for some of you, if you're not familiar with that Fidelity website there, fidelity.com/schedule. Let me go ahead and share another screen here with you. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I wanted to show you real quick. Fidelity.com/schedule. This is where you land. Schedule a time to meet, right, is where you would go. And the one key here is you're going to put in Arizona University System. So like I mentioned at the beginning, I cover ASU, but I also help with NAU and U of A. We don't talk about them because ASU is the best, obviously, but we do support them. So we're happy to do that for them. If you put that in and then come in and say, hey, I want a virtual appointment, for example, it's going to show you my next availability. Okay. So we have some here on the 26th. And then we can also see openings in May, for example. So you're like, hey, that doesn't work. Let me find another date. Awesome. We're here to help. Pick a time, get scheduled. We're not going to get it all done in 45 minutes, but we can definitely move the ball forward and really help you figure that out. Okay. Now, other resource, because that's a big one and we want to encourage you to leverage it. On fidelity.com, and again, I'm going to include this to Liz and her team, so you'll have access to where to find this. We have our life events page on our website. This is something we've been developing over multiple years, and this can be great for all kinds of life events, like buying a home, having a kid, getting divorced, right? Like retiring obviously is a big one, right? That affects so many of our clients. And in this, it's really taking a lot of what we've talked about here today and going even further into it. Because there's going to be some time here, some education that you're going to want to acquire, right? This first section, easing into retirement, right? Then we have a whole one on retirement income, right? We were talking on that. And there's just article, video, you name it, checklists. We have these great tools, calculating your Social Security, estimate healthcare costs in retirement. That is so big. And by the way, these are free tools. You don't have to have a Fidelity account to access any of this. This is just available to you. And we want you to use it because we have seen so much benefit when people engage in these topics. One other thing that I want to show you that is massive here, navigating Medicare with confidence. So this is one that we've actually recently, this year, we're going to go 50 states and we have Medicare specialists who help people navigate their options who are not paid on a commission. Like this is something we just do. And you can talk to somebody that they're going to say, great, here's what's available in your state. Here's what it is. They're not going to get commission. They're walking through that because a lot of people struggle with that because they feel like, am I getting advice that's not, obviously in conflict, right? That somebody's just selling me something. Fidelity said, this is so important to our clients. We need to do this. And we're making it possible. This year, we've been in Arizona for a while, but they're going full 50 state. later this year. So that is huge. And make sure you understand that if you're getting close, or even if you're still working and you're not, let's say you're 66, you're going to retire at 67, you want to start looking at this as soon as you can and start making decisions around, okay, when I transition, what does that mean for me when it comes to Medicare? Okay. All right, we're 25 minutes in, Liz. I wanted to leave a few minutes for questions. I don't know if any came through while I've been chatting here, but please let me know if there are any that I can help out with.
Yeah, there is nothing in the chat at the moment. Does anyone have any specific questions for CJ? Let me just see if anyone's typing anything. And so CJ, just one thing in person, is that meeting at ASU in person or are you going somewhere else?
Yeah, so if we have in-person meetings, it would be on campus, right? So whether that's sometimes I'll have a specific location, or depending on the day, if it works out, sometimes I'm able to come to your office if that's something that's just easier. I've definitely done that for various where schedules, it's just what it is. And so we try to accommodate where we can. So definitely, yeah, if you're looking for an in-person, again, I'll include my information. Liz will have that in the materials and links and everything. Reach out to me if you're wanting to do something in person, especially if you want to, if you're in a unique location or you have a unique schedule or something of that nature, and we try to make that work as well for you. So.
Okay, thank you. And no one has brought any other questions in the chat, so.
All right. Well, it's either I did a really good job or a terrible job. I'll take the good one, hopefully. Yeah, I'll give a few more minutes to Kevin, it looks like. If he wants it, please take it. He's a wealth of knowledge, everyone. So, we may not work for the same company, but Kevin's awesome. I'm just going to throw that out there.
CJ, you're too nice. I think CJ did a great job. I'm like, hey, if I could headhunt CJ and take him from Fidelity, I would. But unfortunately, I work for the other company, TIAA, and we'll go ahead and start our presentation. Now, CJ went through so many good topics, so a lot of it might be repetitious, but I'm hoping that it won't be too repetitious. We won't get too bored. We are going to be talking about, creating your retirement strategy. CJ mentioned a lot of it, which is, get your stuff in order. Meet with somebody, whether it is with TIAA or with CJ with Fidelity. We do want you to meet with a representative. It is part of the benefits package to get help from a licensed financial professional, whether, again, it is with CJ or with an individual on my team. We have Dawn and Cherie, whom I manage, that comes directly to campus. So like CJ, we come to campus, we do virtual. There is no reason why every single one of you should not get the advice that all of you deserve and build that retirement plan that you all have waited so long and worked so hard for. So today I'm going to be talking about the 5 steps that we like to use. Again, they're going to mirror a lot of what CJ had to say. And of course, the first step for our retirement income goal is to figure out what is the target. Now, during your working years, if you are a few months away from retirement, this can be really ambiguous. Generally speaking, individuals need about 70 to 100% of their current income in retirement. And at TIAA, we really do focus on income replacement. That is what we care about. Of course, it's wonderful to open up your account and see that big, giant number of money that you have saved up. But what does that tell you? Not a whole lot. We want to figure out, how are those savings going to be utilized in retirement? How are we going to replace your monthly paycheck? And so we're going to start out first with figuring out, what is your vision? What does retirement look like for you? And for many of you, it might include someone else, whether it is your spouse or partner, best friend, special someone. If there is someone that you are planning retirement with, we would highly encourage that you include them. Whether you're keeping your finances separate or whether you're blending your finances, I think it's important that both of you know what you are planning for. What is the goal? What's the wants? What are the wishes? And then, of course, what do we have on the table? Now, this will help for the planning reasons of how to maximize your money, how to take it out in the most efficient manner, but also it's good for legacy planning. If something were to happen to one of you, the other person is looped in. They understand where everything lives. They know how you would have managed the accounts if you were still here. So it is important to include that person in the meeting or in your discussions about your retirement. Another thing to think about is, are you going to work in retirement? And this can have not only, monetary financial implications. Are you going to be getting a paycheck? But it's also going to keep you busy. So are you doing it because you just love what you're doing? You want to get out in the community. You want to stay sharp. My mom, she retired a few years ago and she went back to work specifically for that. She got sick of sitting in the house by herself watching Bravo every day. So she went back to work to, again, be with her old colleagues and be in front of her students. She taught for over 40 years, and now she subs now and again. And so she really does enjoy working in retirement. Now, of course, if you are working in retirement, that is income. It might bolster what we're planning on drawing from your accounts or getting from Social Security. So we will want to build that into your financial plan as well. Another consideration is, where are you going to live? And I think you can think about it from a fun perspective. Where do you want to live? Is it closer to family, loved ones? But monetarily, where are you going to live? Are you going to live in the same home? CJ mentioned you might have a mortgage that you're finishing paying off on. How much do we have left there? Are we going to downsize? Are we going to buy a second place? Are we going to do a reverse mortgage? So these are all questions that you'll want to answer for yourself. And then, of course, what are you going to do? Are you going to travel, go on river cruises? Are you going to do more charitable work? Are you going to kayak like this guy is doing? What do you want to do in retirement? And how will that affect, again, your income plan? Back when I was a financial consultant and I was meeting with individuals one-on-one, I had a woman that came in and she was going to surprise her entire family by taking them all to Disney World. She wanted to spend everything for them. Buy the plane tickets, stay on site, do the tickets, buy all the fancy, tchotchkes and souvenirs. And so she decided that she was going to take a large sum out of her pre-tax savings. Now, when you are planning on taking that out, of course, it comes out as income. So it will affect how you file your income taxes in that year, and it might boost your taxable income in that year, causing you to pay more taxes. You might be in a next tax rate, and you'll want to know that. If you do have other sources that we could draw upon, maybe Roth sources or post-tax sources, you wouldn't have those tax consequences. So that's why it's so important to plan these things, because that way we can maximize those dollars. We can make sure you're taking it out in the most responsible manner to really stretch how long your money will last you and hopefully get you to do more fun things that you've always planned that you've wanted to do. Another thing that you'll want to consider is, are you going to leave money to your loved ones, to charities, to whatever? Are you going to leave a legacy plan? If so, how are you going to build that? Are you making sure that you're taking use of all of those different tax loopholes to maximize your gift? And so this is something, of course, that you'll want to think about as well. Now, the purpose of this slide, of course, was not to give you answers to the questions, but to maybe highlight where you might have a blind spot or a gray spot in your planning. And if you're thinking now, CJ and Kevin have given me so many good things to think about, jot those down and then meet with someone. Make sure that you do anticipate these questions and you do have answers for yourself. Now, remember your health. I didn't even know that Fidelity had that amazing service. So, of course, you have the Medicare website, but if you want to leverage the Fidelity service, I say go for it, because the different supplemental plans, they can be very confusing. I think they're up to supplemental plan P or something. And so if we go through A, B, C, D, E, F, G, there's different co-insurances, different coverages, different premiums, and you will want to make sure that you tailor your health care to you. Get all of those questions answered. Now, of course, CJ and I can figure out how you're going to pay for Medicare, but ultimately you are going to sign up through Medicare for all of these different insurances or co-insurances that you need. Now, with health, this is that eye-popping number that we want you to keep in the back of your mind as you're planning. So when you do look at your big number in your account, on average, a couple needs almost $300,000 just bookmarked for healthcare medical expenses in retirement. That is a large chunk of change. So you'll want to figure out, okay, what can I anticipate for my healthcare costs? Do I have the right coverages planned? Am I planning for this appropriately? Because of course we want flexibility in retirement and we don't want to lock ourselves into an income plan that won't allow us to flex or pivot. Now, we did speak a little bit about long-term care earlier, but if you do have a vision where you're thinking, where am I going to live? Oh, I might need assisted living in my future. What does that look like for you? Of course, the different levels of support that you might need come with different costs. Little known thing is that a zip code change. So even if you're looking at the exact same facility, the exact same level of care, depending on where that facility is located, it can cost drastically more, drastically less than the other facility. So you'll want to plan for this. If it's long-term care insurance, we want to make sure that you're paying those premiums and you have an income stream to take care of that all the way through retirement. But it is something that you want to plan now. As CJ mentioned, that contingency planning, the power of attorneys when it comes to your finances, your medical power of attorneys, and long-term care, we want to take care of that planning today while you still have your facilities, while you're still able to communicate your wants, your wishes, everything to your family and trusted loved ones. Do it now. Don't do it when you need it. Of course, taxes still apply. And so when we have our ordinary income tax, that is, of course, for Social Security, we do think that Social Security will be there to and through retirement for all of you, but it is taxable. If you have ASRS, of course, that is taxable. And then any of your pre-tax savings that will come out, and you will be taxed at ordinary income tax rates. Now, if we want to avoid what happened to my friend that took her entire family to Disney World, that's when we would want to leverage maybe some post-tax sources, whether it is in the form of a Roth IRA or Roth in your plan. Please, if you haven't heard about Roth in your voluntary plan, talk to either CJ or to TIAA. That way we can educate you. There's some really great options of Roth in your plan that might be more efficient than a Roth IRA, but either way, post-tax income is lovely. It is really lovely when you need to take something that is unexpected. So whether it is to fix the air conditioner, we all know that we don't want to lose air conditioning in the middle of June. We'll want to make sure we have a post-tax source that we can draw upon right away. If it's taking the grandkids to Disney World or what have you as well. And then, of course, capital gains, that's for our post-tax investments, whether it is your real estate investment or maybe a brokerage account or mutual fund account, you'll be paying those capital gains rates. Now, definitely work with the trio. So I always say the trio that you need to have in your back pocket is a lawyer for your estate planning or legacy planning. It's a tax professional to help maximize your withdrawals and how you are going to structure your plan from a tax perspective. And then, of course, it is your financial consultant or advisor that can help you make sure that you are leveraging all your savings in the most efficient manner from an investment standpoint. So make sure you have that trio set up for you. Now, longevity is a risk that you will want to plan against. On average, a couple has almost a 50% chance that one of you is going to live to 95. Now, we want to make sure that that person that's living to 95, 100, 105, they are not going to run out of money. So I'm sure that Fidelity provides a similar service. At TIAA, we can illustrate and show you both a number format, numerical format, and graphically when you would run out of money based on your income plan. Of course, there are lifetime income options built into your retirement plan to obviously hedge against this, but this is something that no one wants to run out of money. Let's make sure that we protect you from this risk 100%. All right, so that was step number one of kind of getting your wheels turning. What does retirement look like for you from a taxable perspective, from an income perspective, expense perspective? Let's think about where is the money going to come from. So we are going to start off first with lifetime income sources. We like to marry up lifetime expenses with lifetime income sources, or your essential expenses with your lifetime income sources. And we'll talk about those three in a moment. We also want to take into account all of your other monthly income sources. So CJ mentioned earlier, get your house in order. We follow that exact same principle. Tell us about what you have going on outside of your retirement plan not because we want to bring it into TIAA or what have you, but because it will drastically affect how we build your income plan. And then, of course, withdrawals from your retirement assets, we want to make sure that you have flexibility. Just as I mentioned before, if the air conditioner goes out in July, we want to be able to pivot and be able to pay for that expense on the fly. Now, with lifetime income sources, this is where we like to start because guaranteed checks like to marry up to guaranteed bills. We'd love to start with Social Security. On average, Social Security will only account for about 40% of that income replacement, so we got to make up for the rest of it. But we do really like Social Security. We can help estimate Social Security benefits. We tend to be a little bit more conservative than SSA.gov, but SSA.gov, really easy calculator. You can estimate your benefit. If you do have ASRS, we want to build that in as well. So if we have Social Security plus your defined benefit plan at ASU together, if those cover your bills, we're hunky-dory. If those two things do not cover your bills, and we're like, how are we going to pay for our long-term care insurance premiums? Or how am I going to pay for my Medicare supplemental plan? That's when we'll want to look at the annuity options within your plan at ASU. These are not separate products. These are not something that you have to buy or you have to roll out of. They are options that you can elect. And you do not have to elect your entire portfolio. You can pick and choose how much or how little you choose to turn this pension on for. Now, we want you to meet with us first because with any annuity option, once you start an annuity and you sign the dotted line, you start that income, you cannot change it. You cannot stop it. It is set in stone. It's like cutting up a piece of pie. When you slice up a pie and you start eating the pieces, you can't put the pie back together. We've already cut it up. So we want to make sure that you know exactly which options and you have tailored this annuity option to you. Now, of course, you have my team with Dawn and Cherie. If they pass you to someone called a retirement income consultant, do not freak out. It is still free to you, no additional cost to anybody on the line. Those particular consultants with TIAA, they can help you determine if and when you need to use the annuity. They can also dial down to the month and year that you should claim Social Security for both yourself and or your spouse or partner or ex-spouse or deceased spouse. So they are really, really good at giving you advice and creating an income plan customized to you. Now, I mentioned earlier, we want all your puzzle pieces. Please tell us if you are going to work in retirement or if you have dividend income or rental income or alimony or anything else that might affect your income plan in retirement, because that way we can build that in. If we know that, oh, you are going to receive rental income for the rest of your life, chances are we don't need to annuitize anything because we have enough income to cover your bills. So definitely get your house in order, as CJ said, or bring all those statements and everything to a meeting. And then finally, we do want to remain flexible in retirement. Anything that is held in a mutual fund, you can always withdraw that any day of the week, Monday through Friday, 5-minute phone call. Hey, I need $500. I need $1,000. We call those systematic withdrawals. You can take those whenever you want. Start, stop, raise, lower, start a payment plan. And these are the ones that if you do take monthly income, let's make sure you know when that income will either run out or how it looks throughout your lifetime. And then, of course, in retirement, emergency funds still matter. We will definitely want to continue to have that nice, strong emergency fund, earning at least a rate of return matching inflation. Otherwise, your dollars are getting cannibalized by inflation. So right before retirement, CJ mentioned this earlier, so I won't go too deep into this specific slide, but if you are able to maximize your savings, super savers out there, definitely maximize your voluntary accounts. If you have never heard of the Roth option in your plan, talk to us about it. If you do have the ability to pay down a little debt before retirement, that is great. But these are obviously things that we can discuss in a meeting. Last thing that I really want to drill down on are some important ages for all of you. Of course, 59.5, these are for your tax advantaged accounts, whether it's here at ASU or your IRAs. If you try to draw before 59.5, you may incur a 10% tax penalty. That's 10% on top of your ordinary tax rate. So it is not an efficient use of your money. Let's try, if we can, to pivot. So if you are retiring early, talk to us. Let's see if we do have maybe 457 savings or post-tax savings that we can draw upon until you get to this age. The next ages have to do with Social Security. Obviously, 62 is as early or as young as you can be to claim Social Security. It's about 1/3 of the benefit that you would receive if you waited until 70. Now, every month that you wait, your check's going to grow. Social Security considers you full retirement age at 66 or 67. And then at age 70, that is when your check stops growing. So most individuals start claiming Social Security by 70. If you need help determining when you should claim or when your spouse or partner might want to consider claiming, or if you should claim their benefit, definitely meet with someone, and we can provide that answer to you. Medicare, make sure you meet with Medicare around age 65 within 3 months, or else you'll get in trouble. And then, of course, 73, RMDs, required minimum distributions. Now, I could spend an hour on this. I will not. Required minimum distributions is when Uncle Sam starts to lose his patience. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when you have pre-tax or tax-deferred savings, think of it as an IOU. When you are putting that money into the account, you are writing Uncle Sam an IOU. You're saying, Uncle Sam, I'll pay you taxes on this money when I take the money out in retirement. And Uncle Sam's like, cool, that sounds great. And so you're dumping money into your tax-deferred plans, your traditional IRAs. It's growing, tax-deferred, no tax consequence or fees when you're changing your investments. And so at age 73, this is when Uncle Sam says, what is up? You should be retired by now. You should be paying me taxes. And so the government will start to force you to liquidate a portion of your account every single year. Now, each account that you have, if you have a traditional IRA, if you have your plan at ASU, if you have an old 401k, anything that has pre-tax, you will have a separate RMD for each account. Now, if you work with someone in the trio, remember the trio is the attorney, the tax professional, and the financial advisor. If you're working with your tax professional, they might be able to figure out a strategy to satisfy multiple RMDs from one account, but ultimately, when you add all those numbers together, you will still have to take out the same amount of money. Now, generally speaking, it's about 4% of the total account value that you will need to liquidate every single year. If you don't, Uncle Sam will charge you a 25% penalty on that amount. So I know it's lunchtime. If we have a $100,000 account, your RMD is about $4,000. You say, no, I'm not doing it. You're going to owe Uncle Sam $1,000 in tax penalties. Not a great use of your funds. Now, if you need help figuring out what is my RMD amount, am I subject to RMDs? How can I create a payment plan to satisfy this? Please leverage both Fidelity or TIAA. We can help you with this. Make sure that you're avoiding any sort of penalties. There is a big asterisk or caveat. If you are still working at ASU, your current employer, and you're in that plan, as long as you are earning $1 of taxable income, you don't even have to be fully part-time, just $1 of taxable income, your plans at ASU are exempt from RMDs until you leave. Now, the second that you decide to retire and leave ASU, that is when your Arizona plans will be subject to RMDs in that year. So if you wait until December 31st and you say, that's my last day, you will be subject to RMDs on that year in December 31st. So might as well wait till the next year. But ASU, your plan is exempt until you retire. Everything else outside of ASU, maybe 401ks, IRAs, anything outside, those will be subject, whether you're working or not. All right, last slide that I'm going to present. When you are in retirement, managing your funds doesn't stop. So you still have access to both Fidelity and TIAA to and through retirement as part of the benefits package. Generally speaking, individuals should be less risky in retirement, and that's because our time horizon when we need to start drawing the funds is now. And so we want to make sure we're nice and diversified And when the market's being creepy, we're not selling our investments at a loss. We're able to pivot and generate our income from other holdings. Now, this is not one size fits all, and something that you should ask when you are meeting with a financial consultant or professional is, what is the goal of this account? If the goal of the account is maybe not retirement income, it might be legacy planning or charitable giving, that will drastically affect the goals of the investment. So definitely dive in to those investment recommendations. Ask your questions of not only the advisor, but also of yourself. What is the goal of this account? When do I need to start accessing it? If it's for your loved ones after you pass away, you might be able to be a little bit more aggressive with that fund than if it were a retirement account. Now, I talked very quickly about these 5 steps. First step was figuring out what is the target? What do we have to pay for in retirement? Second step is, how are we going to pay for it? What are the income sources? Third step is, what can we do today? Can we maximize our account? Do we need to change our investments? Are we on track? If you all don't know if you're on track for retirement, great reason to meet with Fidelity or TIAA. The fourth step were those key ages, 59 and a half, 62, 65, 66, 67, 70, and 73 should ring a bell after today. And step number 5 is to protect your savings. If you need help at all, definitely take us up on the offer, whether it is, again, with Fidelity or with TIAA. Both of us provide every employee at ASU one-on-one consultations at no additional cost. If you'd like to meet with TIAA, you can just go to tiaa.org/schedule now. Both Cherie and Dawn do in-person meetings. We also have a team of virtual consultants that can help you basically any day of the week. And so that is, again, part of the benefits package. Even after you leave, if you move across the country, you can meet with us and take us up on the offer. Now, I should have been looking at the questions, and I definitely see them now.
And there were
really
a couple of them. Do you see them, Kevin?
Yeah.
The first one was, how does a disabled adult child influence our retirement decisions, especially in regards to taking Social Security?
When in regards to taking Social Security, okay. So, you know, for the disabled adult child and taking Social Security, they could technically claim a portion of this individual or whomever is affected, their Social Security, or if we don't want to necessarily mess with the Social Security benefit and we want to create a lifetime income source, they could also serve as a second annuitant on an annuity option with the retirement savings. So you do have a couple of different options. What I might suggest is, of course, this is an individual situation, individual question. I would really highly suggest this individual meets with whomever they have for their retirement plan. That way the income plan can be specifically geared and built for this. I believe that, CJ, and I don't want to speak for you, but with TIAA, I'm sure it's the same with Fidelity. We have individuals that specifically do more advanced planning for this type of situation. And again, that's at no additional cost for us. I'm sure it is with Fidelity, but CJ, correct me if I'm wrong on any of that.
No, you're correct, Kevin.
Great, thank you. The next question was, do you have any recommendations for tax professionals who are good with retirement planning?
Well, I would hope that every tax professional would be good for retirement planning. I also do think that, and again, CJ, jump in here. These are all general questions. It's not TI specific, but I would say start with maybe your vision. Work with CJ or with TIAA about your vision. What are you trying to accomplish with your retirement plan for the income? And then we could take that and either refer you to someone local, or if you already are working with someone, you can take, hey, I met with CJ at Fidelity, this is what I got, or I met with Dawn at TIAA, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And then depending on what they have to say, come back, and or you can bring them to a meeting. You can always invite a tax professional to a meeting with a consultant. Obviously, the individual, you, would want to give us authorization to discuss your situation with the tax professional, but you always can.
Yeah, Kevin, I think that's great. Especially I think if you're not quite sure what type of tax help you need, even though Kevin and I or his team, right, we're not, I'm not a CPA, Don's not a CPA, right? We're not giving tax advice, but the thing that I always tell people is we give tax information, right? So when there's an opportunity where we're like, we need to involve a tax professional, we're going to tell you. We're going to say, look, this is a situation where this is what we can tell you, but the complexity of your need requires some broader advice on the specifics. So sometimes people are just like, I don't even know if I need to go talk to a CPA. Okay, well, you can start with us. And if we're like, yes, you need to, we'll happily make that recommendation and say, yeah, that's the next logical step is bringing that tax person in this particular need or question that you have. So.
Yeah, and then someone said you answered their last question. If your plan is not an ASU, do you have to take RMDs while working?
You do, starting at age 73. Don't miss that. And if your birthday is in the middle of the year, you still have to take RMDs in that year. So just because you're turning 73 this year in 2024 doesn't mean you're exempt from 2024. You still have to take your RMDs. So definitely don't miss those.
Excellent. And those were all the questions that were in the chat. Does anyone, we have a couple minutes left if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask another question? Okay. Excellent. Well, we appreciate everyone, CJ and Kevin, for bringing your expertise, and I hope people will be able to move forward with some information of what they need. I did put where we're going to put the recording in the chat, and one of our upcoming classes are coming up, so I will send that out to everyone when I get confirmation. Coming up, Medicare will be our next one, May 20th. So CJ and Kevin, thank you so much for your expertise, and also behind the scenes, Brian and Riley helped me with the IT stuff. So thank you everyone for your time, and certainly send me any information. CJ, you said you had some links and stuff. Kevin, if you have something else you want to add in, send it to me and we'll be happy to share it. And we're going to give everyone a few minutes back. So thank you all for your time today. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.